Well, a hurricane is a really bad storm. A hurricane is something you don't want to be anywhere near. It takes wind, rain, and floods to a whole new level. I mean, for it to be classified as a hurricane, the winds itself have to be sustained over 74 miles an hour, and then that creates all kinds of problems as well with storm surge and floods and rain blowing sideways. It's a distinction that you would find, say, up north between a snowstorm and a blizzard. A snowstorm is bad, but a blizzard is a separate category of snowstorms. Well, rainstorms and thunderstorms are bad, but hurricanes is a whole new level. Once it gets into the hurricane criteria, that opens up a whole set of other parameters that take place that don't normally take place in thunderstorms. Once you get hurricanes, it crosses over that 74 mile an hour threshold, and the pressure is low, and it creates all kinds of other problems that you wouldn't normally see on a typical rainy day. Not all hurricanes are created equal, that is for sure, but there are 5 distinctly different kinds, all in the same family. They're all hurricanes, but we have category 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's called the Saffir-Simpson scale, and the reason why we classify them on different levels based on the wind speed is because we found that at certain wind speeds, hurricanes have certain characteristics. They're all dangerous, and this is the problem we have with categorizing hurricanes. A lot of times we'll say, it's a category 1, expected to be a category 2 at landfall. Or if people think back to, say, Andrew or Katrina, when they think about the category 4 and category 5 hurricanes, people will right away think, well, then it won't be as bad as Andrew because it's only going to be a 2. And it's a real slippery slope when you say it's only going to be a category 1, because that's like saying it's going to be a small disaster as opposed to a big disaster. Category 1 is still a very, very dangerous storm, but there are issues with there's more storm surge, there's typically more rain, there's more wind damage, there's more inland flooding with the higher categories than with the lower categories. But for a place like Coral Gables, for example, right near the bay, especially like around Cocoa Plum, for example, even a category 1 could cause some widespread significant damage. First of all, a hurricane watch would go into effect to give you 36 hours advance notice. Usually with technology nowadays, we've seen this on satellite when it was way out by Africa, so for anybody to hear about this while it's 36 hours away, they've either been out of town or haven't been watching TV. So the days of the hurricane watch giving you 36 hours and the hurricane warning giving you 24 hours notice are almost moot now, because we're able to track these when they're thousands of miles away, not just hundreds of miles away like we used to do years ago. But the traditional hurricane watch, the biblical definition of the hurricane watch means that hurricane conditions are possible in 36 hours. So you don't really want to start shuttering up your home, boarding up your home, or evacuating and things like that. It's just kind of a heads up to let you know that we're getting close to where you're soon going to have to take action. And then when we issue a hurricane warning, that means you have 24 hours to get ready because it's on the way. So a watch means it might come, a warning means it's expected to come. The only problem is the hurricane warning only gives you 24 hours. So hopefully with, again, technology and all of the TV reports that we issue, you'll know days in advance, not just hours in advance, whether a system appears to be heading our way or not. One thing we try to stress every year is that a hurricane is not a point. A hurricane is an area. And sometimes the hurricane force winds extend out over 100 miles. Sometimes it's a very tightly wound hurricane where the hurricane force winds only extend out 20 or 30 miles. But when you see that skinny black line on television, you see those little hurricane icons, dot to dot to dot, and people think, well, it's not coming over my house. Well, surprise, it went 30 miles south of you and you still lost your home. So that's the whole idea behind the cone. If you're in the cone, you could have a serious impact from the hurricane, whether or not the actual center goes over your house or not. Well, it really depends on your location, like they say in real estate, because along the coast, some of the more significant elements would be storm surge, especially during times of high tide. That's simply a wall of water that rises up, and then on top of that, you've got the battering waves on top of the storm surge. Mm-hmm. So if you live along the coast in a flood-prone area, your biggest concern would be flooding from the ocean. If you're farther inland, the big concern might be wind damage and also some inland flooding and issues like that. So it just really depends on where you are. If you're in a high-rise building, say one of those high-rise condos along the beach like we see so much of in South Florida now, if you're on the 20th or 30th floor, obviously the concern for you is going to be wind damage, because the wind could be 10, 20, 30 miles an hour stronger even just on the 30th floor than it is on the ground of some of those buildings. The big concern would be maybe storm surge flooding, or maybe even rain flooding. You could get 15, 20 inches of rain from some of these hurricanes. This is another sticky wicket, as they say, because there are some hurricane experts who've been at this for 20 and 30 years who look at all kinds of different parameters. They'll look at everything from the obvious, atmospheric pressures, or the sea surface temperatures warmer than average. Are we in an El Nino or a La Nina? But then you look at it globally. Has it been raining in Africa? Are there a lot of storms over the African continent? Because that's where a lot of these tropical waves come from. What are the high-level winds? Are they strong? Are they weak? We look at so many different things. The atmosphere is kind of like a layer cake. We look in different layers and see what's going on and what might create hurricanes, what might diminish hurricanes. We put all of that together and try to come up with some sense of, do we think that the conditions are right for a near normal season, a below normal season, or an above normal season? Some have taken it the additional step and actually put a number on it. I'm not a big fan of that. I just think it can be a lot of times misleading, with people know that the average number of named storms every year is 10, and the experts saying we're going to have 17 this year. I think it would be better just to say conditions look favorable for an active year, but not to really quantify it by putting a number on it, because you're setting yourself up for maybe people either not being prepared the way they should, or not believing you next time. If next season you come out with the numbers and you were off by 10 last year, it creates a lot of apathy. And then you're setting yourself for maybe people not taking action the next time. So there are all kinds of things that we look at, and the experts come out with these numbers, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're not. But the biggest thing I want to stress while I have the opportunity is to let people know the only number that really matters is one. If we say there's going to be 24 named storms, and it turns out that there was only one, but it comes in off the bay and wipes out half of Coral Gables, I don't think anybody here is going to say, well, that was a pretty slow year, we only had one. For many, that'll be a lifetime experience, maybe a life-changing experience. So for those, it was a busy year. Like in Homestead with Andrew, that was a very slow year in '93. There was only 6 named storms that year. But you try to tell the people in Miami-Dade County that was a slow year, and it was anything but.